Been a few months since we last talked to Tim Lambesis and As I Lay Dying after the whirlwind of drama last year. I mean, it felt like there for a while. It was a new update every single day. We're doing constant videos on As I Lay Dying. You had the mass exodus of the band where everyone except for Tim left, all of Tim's personal drama, his separation from his wife Dany, all sorts of stuff. The last update, I believe, was in January, so about 3 months ago. Tim did that podcast where he discussed his marriage, how the drama from that spilled into the band, and now he was trying to do some self-reflection. It was essentially another, redemption arc, I guess you could say. But then literally the next day, I think it was, video emerged of Tim getting physical with his dog, and then his ex-wife, now ex-wife Dany, put out a statement about those videos of him, but then went on to explain all of the lies he had allegedly been saying, such as there was never a restraining order or a domestic violence investigation against her. She said that her statement where she said that he wasn't abusing her was false, and that it had been drafted by Tim and his managers. All sorts of stuff. I'll have those videos linked down below. A super messy situation, as you no doubt recall, and now Tim is back in the news. It came out yesterday about a petition from Care2 to have Tim Lambesis investigated for animal abuse. They're looking to get 70,000 signatures, and at the time of filming this, they are almost there, quite possibly even there by the time you're watching this. I'll have a link to the petition down below. It also goes on to explain all of the recent drama, noting that there's been over a dozen members in As I Lay Dying over the years. They talk about the Hitman situation. Again, you can check it out below, but lots of people signing this petition, to say the least. And as far as that mass exodus goes, we did get statements from everyone that left over these last few months. Ryan Neff, Nick Pierce, Ken Susi, Phil Sgrosso, everyone, even down to the band's tour manager, everyone put out their own statements, but they were all really just kind of the same thing. Their integrity and morals were being tested to a breaking point with really nothing overly specific or detailed until now, that is, because Ken Susi was on the Brutally Speaking podcast, which I'll have linked down below, and he went into a fair bit of detail surrounding the mass exodus of the band, and he recalled a specific situation that was really kind of the tipping point for As I Lay Dying to fall apart. Fair warning, it is quite long, and honestly, this is really only a small portion of all of the other As I Lay Dying talk in the podcast. Ken wasn't on the podcast to specifically talk about As I Lay Dying, but of course, it did get brought up. He talked a bunch about it. Here's what he said, and again, strap in, this is a little bit lengthy. If you want to know what exactly happened and why the band broke up, is because we were at Metal Fest and we had the greatest fucking time in my kitchen. And the Metal Fest that he's referring to, I believe, is the New England Metal and Hardcore Festival. I could be wrong, but that's what I think he's talking about. Anyways, we had all the band, all the members, all the crew, everybody, and a few people were staying at a hotel. And then me being a good host after the festival. Now, mind you, Tim and his wife, they weren't vibing on tour. We were unsure if his wife was even going to come to this short weekend of shows, but I'm going to say they were staying in a hotel down the street, and I said, hey, you're going to go get a tattoo. My wife works from home. I got to go to Fishman. If your wife wants to just chill all day, my wife and your wife are friends. You're welcome to just stay here and save the money. And you can use one of our cars. You don't have to rent a car. Just go do your thing. But what ended up happening is my wife and I are having a kid. But we had just announced to my whole family that we're having a baby. We got my mother crying, my father crying. Tim's wife is witnessing this, taking video at our house. It was a joyous occasion the day after Metal Fest. And then within 2 to 3 hours later, there was like an incident where, now mind you, I'm just going to pick up the fucking camera right now. I got these huge honking security cameras all over the house and a label on the front doors saying you're being filmed 24/7, right? And this guy, speaking about Tim, comes into my house in the middle of the night, corners his wife in my kitchen and spits in her face, and then retracts 4 or 5 steps back and has some type of episode which I've never seen of somebody before in my entire life. And then starts screaming and running around my house for help, and it alarmed my wife. She woke up and she's like, what's going on? And I'm like, I've heard him scream for help before. I'm going to see what's going on. But ultimately, I'm not 20 years old. I'm not going to turn a blind eye to domestic violence. I'm not going to turn a blind eye to improper behavior. When shit happens, you fucking handle it. And in that scenario, I didn't know what happened. I separated them. I brought them down to my studio. I asked him specifically what the fuck is going on. Is there anything I need to know? And he was just like, oh, my marriage, this and that. And I'm like, cool. I go upstairs. I ask Dany what's going on. She tells me the truth. I actually pull up the camera footage in front of her and I see exactly what was said. He spit on me. He threw a fit. I was trying to calm him down the whole nine. And to be totally honest with you, that's what fucking happened. Later on, you know, he tried to change. I went back downstairs. I said, I'm disappointed in you. And he's like, I didn't spit on her face. I spit at her feet. And I'm like, why are you spitting in my house in general? If you're going to lie about it, you know? And the honest to God truth is, you're not going to insult me. I asked him to leave immediately. He left, and at that point, the rest is history. If Tim wants me to when I quit the band, he sent a message through his wife's phone, saying he would sue me if I ever released that footage because he didn't know he was filmed without his consent, or he was posting up like Dany would sue me, his wife. But ultimately, I'm not fucking scared. I have the receipts. With Tim's permission, if you want to check if I'm a credible source, if you want to see if I'm an upstanding person, I'll release it. If you want me to release it, that's fine, Tim. I have no problem with it. But I'm not going to sit here and let you say things like, oh, Phil left the band, or you were really distant from the band, and, you know, everyone was trying to pull you back in, but you were just in this place, and blah, blah, blah. You know, you're creating a lie. You're creating a lie for the fan base, and it makes me look bad. It makes the guys look bad. You did something wrong. You have to own up to it. And to be honest with you, I sent the video to Phil and I just said, Phil, you are the other operating officer in this band. You are technically HR. You know, I prefer you don't share this with anybody, but I just said, I have to quit the band. I'm out of here. I don't want to deal with this type of shit. And then I also said that we had money on the line for a tour and pyro and all this other shit. I said, I'll finish the tour. I'll do the European tour as long as this guy has help or he goes to get help, you know? I really didn't want to be a part of the project anymore, but I did understand how much money was on the line for those guys. It's a big investment when you go overseas with scrims and pyro and all this other crap and the deposits that are laid down. And I didn't want to leave them high and dry, even though the severity of the issue was so serious, but I was willing to see through that. But by the time it went into the As I Lay Dying band circle, that's when things imploded. Nobody wanted to be a part of it anymore. They didn't care about the finances. They didn't care about anything. And that's really what went down, you know? It is what it is. Good God, what a story. I mean, not really surprising at all when you consider Tim's history and his background, but still, Jesus, again, there is so much more to all of this too. I mean, that podcast, it's over 2 hours long. I do have it linked down below, as well as all of my other videos on all of the As I Lay Dying drama. You can check those out in the description. We still do not know the future of As I Lay Dying. I do know they have a new manager. They, at least as of a few months ago, had a new booking agent, but the band is no longer listed on said agent's roster, so I don't know the status of that. Obviously, the album, Through Storms Ahead, did release as it was supposed to. There are rumors that Tim is looking to go out on tour later in the year. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. But obviously, he's the only remaining member of the band left. But Ken did say elsewhere in that podcast that, you know, Tim could just go out and find these YouTube musicians, get them to sign NDAs, bring them on board and do his thing, which is certainly a possibility. I mean, despite everything that's been going on, I mean, there's still plenty of musicians out there who probably don't give two shits about anything that Tim's done. They don't care about the public perception of Tim or the As I Lay Dying brand for that matter. So it is very possible that he could still continue on. Whether or not Tim will be able to sell any tickets moving forward, that is a whole nother story. But anyways, we have not heard from Tim about any of this aside from that podcast that we mentioned earlier. And I am curious to see if Ken Susi opening up about all of this will sort of be a tipping point for the other guys to start talking about everything that happened now that a lot of this is out there in the open from the podcast with Ken. So it will be interesting to see if we hear from any of the other guys in the near future. But for now, that is all that I got for you. Thanks so much for hanging out. Feel free to drop a like, subscribe below if you feel like it, and I'll see you next time.